Which team has the best roster in the NFL? Where are you going to go?
I think they got it right with the Ravens. I think you could point to maybe the interior of the offensive line and the wide receivers as weak spots. But other than that, they are loaded and they're deep at a lot of positions. You know how I feel about secondary play. They have probably one of the best secondaries in football, and they have backups that can come in and play admirably. They got Heisman Trophy winner backup at quarterback. They got a Heisman Trophy winning running back. And this team is just loaded. They put Calais Campbell on that team. Calais Campbell is getting up there in age, but he is still a game wrecker. And that's not to even mention that they got the best kicker in football. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but it means a lot at the end of late games. You have the best kicker in football and maybe the best kicker that we've ever seen in professional football. This roster is without any major holes.
That's extraordinarily well researched. If we're getting to the kicker, then I'm delighted that we started with you. Saturday, agree or disagree? Ravens #1.
I disagree. I love that we're talking about kickers. You know why we don't need a kicker? Because we got Patrick Mahomes on the Kansas City Chiefs. That's going to be the best roster. Why? My man Hembo gave me a little stat. I don't have all the stats like Fox has, but when he's on the field, they average 6.6 yards per play. 6.6 per play. So with Patrick Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, that offense, it overcomes all roster deficiencies because of what he can do. They're 12-4, Nick. They're 12-4 when he gets banged up. Heaven forbid if that man stayed fresh all season last year. This guy, he is a difference maker. He completes a roster because of what he's been able to do his last couple of years.
You're not going to get any argument from me about how great Patrick Mahomes is, but it feels like you didn't understand the question. Like, the question is the best roster, and you gave me one name. Patrick Mahomes is an A-plus quarterback. You know who else is an A-plus quarterback? Lamar Jackson. But Patrick Mahomes, the rest of his team is a lot of talented players, but they do have holes, particularly on defense. It's hard for me to imagine they have the best roster in football. They have a very good roster. They're probably the favorites to win the Super Bowl. I thought they would last year, and they might again this year. But if you're going to complete roster, you're looking at for a GM who has built out a roster that has the fewest holes. I could understand maybe you saying the Saints, but skipping over the Saints and disregarding the Ravens to me doesn't make any sense.
I think I've got.
No, listen.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, listen. When you're talking about a roster, I understand we're talking about they have a good offensive line. They just added a running back that's going to be lethal for this offense with Andy Reid. Their defense may have some issues, but ultimately we're talking about rosters win games, right? Rosters win games. That's why we put rosters together. So if we're talking about the best roster, who's going to win the most games? Who's going to win the most important game? When we have a quarterback that gets us 6.6 yards a carry, I'm saying it covers the blemishes on defense of what you're talking about. I understand if you go position by position, but if we're building rosters to win games, what's my best roster? It's the best team. And right now, the best team has got to be the Kansas City Chiefs until we see otherwise. That's why I went that direction.
I respect
Greeny, don't let this man change the question, Greeny.
Nick, no, I'll go the other way from you. I respect it. Always change the question to suit your narrative. I think it's brilliantly played by Saturday. He's basically saying Patrick Mahomes is the best roster in the NFL. And who are we to argue? Tim Hasselbeck is here. Tim, you've been listening to the conversation here so far. Who gets your vote? Which team has the best players?
Well, there's a couple things that are predictable. Of course, Jeff is going to say that because his career was playing on a team where the quarterback was the team. That's why Jeff is going that direction. Let's just be honest. The Colts never had the best roster, right? They had the best quarterback. That's why Jeff is going that direction. Look, Nick kind of gave a little tip of the cap to the New Orleans Saints, and for me, that is the team. They have an A-plus quarterback, as the guys have been talking about. They are good at every single level on both sides of the ball. They have a quarterback. They have the wide receiver. They have two really good tackles. They have a running back that's outstanding. Jared Cook's a legitimate tight end. You flip to the defensive side of the ball. Difference makers at the edge position in Cam Jordan and Marcus Davenport. Demario Davis at the linebacker level, one of the best in the game. And you get into the secondary, and now you pair Malcolm Jenkins with Marcus Williams, who's a good young safety. You also have Marshawn Lattimore at corner. So, like, to me, I look at that football team. And by the way, I'm ripping off this list of really good players at every level. And they probably have the best kind of utility player in Taysom Hill, a guy that forces every single team to game plan for. So I look at the Saints, top to bottom, everywhere you look, they are loaded.
Not only that, they have the only backup quarterback in the NFL who threw for 5,000 yards in a season. So that's a pretty remarkable one as well. Okay, so we got three different teams who got three different picks, and I'm not going to argue with any of them. I am instead going to bring up a different question. because we all understand that the Ravens rise and fall with their quarterback, as so many other teams do. Yesterday, Dan Orlovsky was here, and I asked him, in what areas can he see Lamar Jackson improve? And the reason for this was because his own offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, had said, I can see Lamar improving greatly as he goes forward. Domonique, that was your pick. How much of a concern in your mind are all of the hits that Lamar Jackson gets in a season?
I mean, it's a concern. Injury is always a concern for any quarterback. It's the most important player. But, I mean, football is risky. And I think Lamar absolutely has shown the ability. I think he was the third most efficient quarterback from the pocket last year. So he has the ability to throw from the pocket. And part of that is because of his threat to run and his threat to scramble. But what it boils down to me, is do you want to be great or not? Like, I'm not concerned about reducing his hits. I'm not concerned about reducing his running attempts, because when Lamar Jackson is allowed to be Lamar Jackson, you are the best team in football. That's what they were last year. So if you're looking at this as a head coach or a coordinator, the question is, do you want to win Super Bowls? Do you want to go to the Hall of Fame? Or do you want to wait around for Steve Bisciotti to come fire you? The answer is Super Bowls and Hall of Fame. So let Lamar do the things that he does well and build an offense around his running ability. If he gets hurt, you figure it out then. But I just don't necessarily believe in the idea that we need to start curtailing his running attempts and trying to slow down his ability to impact the game the way that he does.
Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't see it that way. It's been my number one concern with Lamar in terms of the sustainability of what the Ravens are doing. That's the key. You know, the question coming into last season was, can you do this for an entire season? Well, they proved that you can do it for an entire season. But can you do it for 5 years? Can you do it for 3 years? That ends up being the issue. Think about this, 205 hits, all right? Cam Newton, who everyone thinks gets hit way too much, has never been hit more than 184 times in a season. And look at the toll it's taken on his body, and he's a bigger, stronger man than Lamar Jackson.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.